Bless up, guys. Yannick Reid here, and welcome to a One Par podcast, a podcast where we talk about culture, technology, and lifestyle, and just everything that connects it together. I'm your host, Yannick Reid, and I'm happy to have you here with me today. If you're a returning guest, you don't know, bless up. Thank you for the support all the time. If you're new here, welcome. I would encourage all those who are listening to hit the subscribe button. If you are watching this on YouTube, the like button helps as well. A lot of you should also know that this podcast is available in an audio-only format wherever you listen podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, or whatever apps that you like to use to listen to podcasts. I like Overcast. You have a whole bunch. You search a One Par podcast and you'll find a One Par podcast. So let's kick it right off. Our last episode, we had our first ever guest, Faye Talik, who a lot of you guys seem to enjoy that episode, and we'll have a whole list of guests coming up, and I'm still accepting suggestions for guests, so feel free to put your guest ideas down in the comments or DM me or the One Par Podcast page on Instagram. Again, as I told you guys, it won't be an every week thing because the podcast name are One Par, and sometimes I want to talk to you guys one away and we get into it. You get what I'm saying? I was looking forward to doing this episode because right now it feels like we are at the beginning of summer. You know, at the time of recording, first week of June, and for many of us Caribbean and Jamaican people, this is where, the beginning of summer comes around. I've been having this conversation for maybe like the last 3 years or so, because where we even got this understanding of summer starting really feels like school, primary school, prep school, basic school, high school, or even college. Once June is coming around, it's holiday time. I'm born on June 18th, so my birthday is coming up, and I never experienced my birthday in school. School was always let out by the time my birthday came around. So from June come, I know, all right, we're about to get into summer holidays. And the conversation I was having with people, say summer holidays is for kids, like summer is for children, because I never really analyze the fact, like when I was going to college, that in my final year, or maybe I guess rather my third year of college going into final year, that was actually my last summer holiday. Like that was the last one for life. Because after you finish your final year as a college student, or wherever you wrap up your educational system, that summer would be your last summer. After that, you're just an adult, because when summer comes around, working adults or working people, we don't really get holidays. You might get a couple bank holidays in between summer, like maybe an Independence Day or whatever, but it's still just regular business for everybody. And that has just been interesting. Even the way that conversation came about was when I talked to a lot of people who visit Jamaica, especially Jamaicans who have migrated, or Jamaicans or second-gen Jamaicans, or just people who come into Jamaica on a holiday. I always say, no, don't come summer, come Christmas, because Christmas is actually a period where working people do actually get a holiday. They usually get a holiday period. And I find that Christmas is just a much more condensed and uniform time, meaning Christmas doesn't really move up and down, where summer is kind of like a 3-month period. Christmas is like a 1 month, couple week period. So it's very easy for everybody to be in the same place, Your cousin come down, your family come down, your best friend come down, all of the people them who interested to be in Jamaica for Christmas, you just know, say, all right, this is the time, and people will have time off. Summer is not a holiday period, so you can have somebody who comes early summer, someone who comes midsummer, someone who comes near to the end of summer. It's just this it's a whole season where you can land at any point in summer, and my opinion, in Jamaica, it won't necessarily be the most exciting time depending on what you're doing, just because you might be hearing like, hey, I'm on holiday, but a lot of working people will be like, hey, nice that you're here, but I still have work in the morning. Like, nothing really changes. That's really like my opinion on summer. I've spent some time thinking about that opinion, and I think it's like a good time to talk about this, because as the summer approaches, especially as creatives in the Caribbean, I think it's important that our loss of summer holidays still not be the end of, for it to still not necessarily mean the end of us enjoying summer. Because, like, our summer holidays when we were in school, it was the biggest holiday gap, and it's like a period that every young person looks forward to, a big break from school. And during the summer, you get up to all these adventures, just the charm that summer used to have. You go to summer camp, or you might go away on a trip, or you're doing like a bunch of sports. You're just doing a bunch of stuff that you just didn't have an opportunity to do in the whole year. You're playing games, you're spending time with your friends. Summer is just this magical thing when you are a young person. And I never really identified that, like, the loss of summer can also just kind of trigger like a partial loss of youth. You know what I mean? And a certain exuberance for not just the season but also life. I was saying it on Instagram the other day that bring back hobbies. Bring back hobbies. And I feel like the beginning of summer and that messaging has a really good tie-in. And the whole thing I'm saying about like bring back hobbies is that I think just the way how social media has become such an unmoving element in life now. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to think about life divorced from social media at this point. There's a whole industry that is just dedicated to communication and marketing that depends on social media. So to me, social media is as pervasive as the internet. But the presence of social media, what people can achieve on social media, the amount of doors that have been opened due to social media and the internet, especially content creation, creating content right now, I think it has, one of the effects that it has had in our reprogramming of our minds is that a lot of things become performative. And don't jump. When I say performative, I don't even think that we're even aware of how performative some things become sometimes. But it is just because the presence of social media raises how much we are perceived and how often we feel perceived. So it's almost like we're always being watched. Back in the day, when you go summer camp or something like that or whatever, or you go on swim camp or something and you go and learn to swim. You just go and you swim, and you learn to swim, or you learn a new skill, you learn how to ride a bicycle. And at that time, and I'm speaking as a millennial, of course, because young people having summer right now are experiencing a very different version of summer than when I or fellow millennials and maybe Gen Z experienced summer. But when I was experiencing summer, it was just all about the fun of it, just what's the most fun. And there was so much time, so there's just time to just truly just mess around and do anything. Whereas now, it's like, all right, cool. If someone says, all right, I'm going to learn how to ride a bike or I'm going to start running, and this is not shade on anyone, because I think it affects everybody, including myself. A lot of it, there's just this temptation to report progress, how well we're doing, and everything is compared to how presentable it can be. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if I start running, I'm not gonna post my run times until I start to feel satisfied about my run times. If I'm in the gym, and I'm literally talking about myself here, I don't want to record myself doing any set that I don't feel competent in, because the sharing of it, I want to share a level of competence, you know what I mean, a level of performance that looks attractive, that, you know what I mean, that puts me in a good light. A great example is I am interested in playing pickleball. I love the fun that people have been doing with like pickleball, but I have not tried pickleball at all because I want to go and learn how to play pickleball privately. I don't want to be embarrassed learning to play pickleball. And it's not even necessarily about the social media aspect, but in this instance, it is definitely about being perceived. I don't want to necessarily be perceived as a rookie or as a beginner. And I think that feeling is something that other people relate to, whether they're conscious of it or not. And I think in a way it's kind of poisoning, like how we approach hobbies. And there's like a correlation between it and productivity, I think. Even when I was talking about this bring back hobbies thing, it's because also I think that I see with hobbies and how people approach them is that, even how you just heard me speaking, is that we want to optimize all of the hobbies, you know what I mean? We have such a hard time enjoying being amateurs, enjoying being beginners, enjoying learning things, enjoying not knowing how to do things, because of just this societal pressure to always show up as a finished product. I think that pressure can really have a long-term effect on us as a people. And I speak in a lot to Caribbean people, and I'm sure people even outside of the Caribbean may be able to relate. I think hobbies should allow us to disconnect. Hobbies should allow us to disconnect from the high levels of performance that we are expected to have on a regular basis. So it's not just the hobby thing, but also this hyper productivity that is very pervasive in our society, that seems to have ebbs and flows, because I don't feel like I'm the first person to be speaking about hyper productivity and hustle culture, but I think I just seen everything kind of tie into it right now, and I just felt like with the beginning of summer is just a perfect time for us to really try and investigate it. And it kind of came about when I think it was one guy from Diary of the CEO. He was talking about how he just spent he drank too much wine with friends one night, and just how it ruined his productivity. Like the next day, his sleep score was terrible, his dopamine levels were lower, and he just wasn't productive for the rest of the week. I think that is like a snapshot into how, if we're not careful, we have our lives on this really strict and tight rope. A really strict and tight rope where everything is being quantified by how productive it is, how useful it is, or how well it is for optics or statistics. And I personally feel like I've seen how that is harming people, you know what I mean? Harming me, how it harms my friends, and how it harms a wider community. Somebody will pick up a hobby like let's just say photography. And, somebody's enjoying themselves just taking pictures, and maybe they have a knack for taking pictures. I'm sure all of us are familiar. Tutus, an aunt, an uncle, or a friend is telling us, yo, you should really take this up as a business idea, You should really take this up as a business idea. And while, yes, a lot of hobbies can lead into lucrative business ideas, I do believe, as I said earlier, that we should have some things that are just for us, some things that are just for us as individuals, or just things for our enjoyment or for a community. You know what I mean? It don't have to be, okay, I'm going to turn this into a business, because there is a misconception that if you love what you do, it will never feel like work a day in your life. And I think there is some truth and there's some non-truth to that, because I love what I do as work. I am very grateful and humbled to be able to live a reasonable life using my given talents and skills that allow me to express myself. But it definitely does feel like work. It definitely feels like work. And this is something that I realized somewhere around my late teens, early 20s, that once something starts to have a work obligation on it, like a timeline or expectation on it, it has a totally different feeling from something that is a hobby or done just for fun. And let's earmark it. When I'm doing photography for our clients, there's a rubric, there's something I have to follow, there's a timeline when it's due. I don't have the final say. There's a whole compromise in when it is done, how it is done, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and all of those things are essentially guardrails that are put on the creative process so that everybody can be on the same page. Whereas when you're exploring something as a hobby, you have the freedom to explore. You have the freedom in terms of how quickly you want to go, how slowly you want to go, how often you want to go, and how you want to go about it. And I think having that freedom to explore something you're passionate about is good for your mind, and honestly, like on a real, it's just good for your soul. It is good to experience freedom. Okay, I am free to play pickleball as often as I want or as little as I want. One of my hobbies is playing video games. I play video games when I have the time. It's just whenever I want. I'm not trying to be the best at the game. I don't even play the games competitively. It is literally just something to relax. People might cook. People might garden. Gardening is a great hobby because, you have the ability, okay, I choose the plants that I'm interested in. I choose where I plant them. I can choose, you just have so much of the directive say of how you want to engage with your hobbies. And I think it's really important for everyone, not just Caribbean people, to have that freedom to explore something. I can imagine if I was to get into gardening, I would just be so excited to take pictures of everything and share pictures, That feeling in itself, it reminds me of the blogging era and the Tumblr era. It was just fun to just put all of just the little joy I have somewhere. And I guess what I liked about Tumblr that feels different from platforms like Instagram and others is that Tumblr, even though it was a social media, it didn't feel like when you had a Tumblr page that you were interacting with your friends. It felt like you were just interacting with random people who may share the same interests. And there wasn't like much of like a commenting feature. It was mostly just shares and reblogs. And so like virality on Tumblr felt very different. And that is kind of what I feel like if like, I want to start a gardening page. But I think what gets corrupted along the way is And I think people even have this problem, even outside of hobbies, just knowing how we use social media. Instagram has this big problem that they're trying to fix, where people are not comfortable sharing things on the platform. That is a big problem that Instagram knows that it is trying to fix. So a lot of features are designed in the hopes that it encourages people to post, because any inkling that starts with a user base not wanting to use the platform or not wanting to actively use the platform is almost what some people may consider the beginning of the end, because you want people to feel good to use the platform. So their biggest problem, especially as it comes to the feed, is that posting on an Instagram feed for a lot of people feels very pressuring, and it feels like there is a large amount of pressure to curate and show up in an aesthetically pleasing way. Instagram has definitely long moved past its original kind of form where it felt like a dump, like, oh, I'll just post anything here, it doesn't really matter, it's just like very free form. Where now Instagram is literally the home of a lot of mass marketing. So what used to be just a place to show what you're eating is now the same place that Nike and Apple and Kim Kardashian are posting multi-million-dollar campaigns. It feels like showing up, there's a lot of pressure for it to always seem bigger than it already is, which is a pressure that, shouldn't be on a hobby. It shouldn't be on a hobby. And I think what that kind of happens and how that relates to high productivity is that our hobbies don't really look like hobbies anymore. Our hobbies just start to look like second jobs. Our hobbies just start to look like second jobs. You have a run club. The run club needs to have a logo. You need to have branded shirts. Okay, now there are 5 people in the run club, and now we have to make sure that there's a schedule. Okay, I need to make sure that we have a graphic designer, or I need to learn Canvas, so now I can post the run schedule or the run route. And you just see how what is a hobby just starts to turn into a second job. Not to say that hobbies can't have a level of passion and intensity, like if you have a gardening hobby, you can be really serious about your gardening hobby. Like, yo, I'm really into this is going well, and I'm putting a lot of effort into my hobby. But I feel like a lot of us are just adding to our burnout fuel with just how much pressure is placed on our hobbies. Yeah, I just felt it really important to have this conversation as somebody visible in this space, because I think, especially as Caribbean people, especially as Jamaican people, I think we are very prone to hustling. Jamaicans are hustlers by nature. It's in our cultural DNA. Finding different ingenious ways of making money, of starting businesses. We have a very good entrepreneurial culture, and we just naturally see opportunities to make money. And I think that's good, just because we don't have an economy that makes it easy for you to just have one job and just make bank off of it. But you have to find so many different ways to have multiple streams of income. And there's a big pressure for people to have multiple streams of income. I think it's very easy for us to tie our value as people just existing based on our productivity and how much we do and how much we produce and how much we create. A question I don't like, I shouldn't say I don't like, it's not my favorite question, when people ask me what's next. Because sometimes I really don't know what's next. I'll be honest, sometimes I have no idea what's next. Maybe I'm just wrapping up a project and I'm in between what my next huge goal is, and I may not have a big project on the plate. And maybe that may be the time where I take some time to myself. Maybe that's the time I take to reevaluate. Maybe that's the time I take to just see if everything is good going on in my mind, in my body, and in my soul. But these conversations, and I know people don't mean anything by it, but at the same time, it's like you have to try and drum up this what's next to sound productive, because that is how you sound valuable. Where sometimes I'm just like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I have no idea what's next right now. I'm just taking it one day at a time. And some seasons, I don't have any problems. Some seasons I'm not really doing anything, and I just use that time to say, all right, there's no urgent thing on the plate. Maybe I can focus on the things that have often been neglected because of productivity, like wellness and hobbies and things that I'm interested in spending time with that may not have a monetary benefit, but they benefit how I feel about myself. Again, just because we have a hustle culture, I think it's just important to just say, like, guys, pick a hobby. If you already have one, keep something that is for yourself. If it's not for yourself, focus on community building, because especially post-pandemic, and I know that's a very triggering term for a lot of people, what some people underestimate is the time of the pandemic really interrupted some people's development or maintenance of their social skills. And for some people haven't yet realized that it's very difficult for them to connect with others meaningfully. They're having a hard time connecting with others meaningfully because the pandemic was teaching us very aggressively to enjoy our own company and learn how to be alone, which has its benefits. I definitely have taken away a huge competence in enjoying one's own company. The human species is a species that needs others. We need people. And I think certain things like expressing that I just want to be around some friends, or I'm feeling lonely today, or hey, can I just come over and just chill out? I think those simple things are becoming harder for people to say because of just a lot of these various factors. Our social skills being damaged due to COVID, especially a lot of creatives, even like myself, who we may not work at a business where we are interacting with multiple people per day and there's even a work community. Some of us may work alone, we may work at home, or we may work with like small groups remotely. It affects our ability to develop community, and we don't even realize that some of the afflictions that we have are due to just not connecting meaningfully with others. And I think hobbies are a very good way to meaningfully connect with others. That's why I'm not shading the run clubs. I love the run clubs because it gives people an excuse to say, okay, I like running, or I'm interested in being a little fit. Let me join this club. And then you make a group of friends, you connect over something like-minded, and you don't know, tutus, oh, let's go out for dinner, or tutus, oh, let's go grab a drink. And then you see that's how you can learn to make new friends and build new communities, because they said college/university is the last milestone where you are making friends on a regular basis. It's the last place where like, okay, I go here, and I'm meeting a bunch of people. After that, making friends becomes very hard, and it becomes something that is not passive. It's something you have to like really actively do. And I see that as very true. As the years go by, I see where you're not necessarily interfacing with large groups of people that on a regular basis where you're having a chance to kind of figure them out. Community building is things that you have to be really intentional about to, connect with others. People would even say to you like, yo, you need to network more. And networking has like this very put on a suit and go to a mixer on Wednesday feel to it, where networking is really just being able to talk to people, being social with others. And it doesn't always even mean with the goal of business or making money, but I think the better you are at being social and connecting with others, is the easier it is for it to benefit you in multiple ways. Like, okay, cool, I've made a friend here, that's awesome. Or you might meet somebody. It might not even be the person that you meet. They may connect you to someone else that creates a great business opportunity. And that's how I like to look at it. When I'm put in certain situations, I say, okay, cool, this is an opportunity where I can maybe meet somebody, or I can learn about something, or I can learn about somebody, because I learn a lot from people, I learn a lot from people because everybody has a different background. They're grown differently. They're raised differently. You may have a lot in common, but you learn a whole lot with differences, like the experiences people had in childhood, where people went to school. Some people may have parents from different countries, so their cultural integration is different. All of those things give you an opportunity to receive things from other people and say, oh, that's a different way of thinking about it. I like that, or I don't like that. And it gives you an opportunity to challenge what you like or don't like, or it gives you an opportunity to change and evolve as a person. This summer, open yourself up to a new hobby. Challenge yourself to not make an Instagram page about it. You can still take the pictures, and you can still have them, and you can still share them, but just have a hobby that you allow yourself to immerse yourself into it offline. I think that's the challenge. Just immerse yourself into it offline, Immerse yourself in, okay, if it's gardening, when you go buy some seeds, use it as an opportunity to learn about the person who owns the flower store. Or if it is that you're doing pickleball, you strike up a conversation with somebody else who is learning, or you investigate what makes pickleball interesting to the person you're playing against. If it's cooking, maybe take a cooking class. Vibe with the other people who are there at a cooking class. I've done that before. It's very, very fun, by the way. Very fun. I would definitely recommend it. So that's the thing about hobbies. You are more valuable than how good you are at something. Enjoy the freedom of being an amateur. Romanticize learning, discovering and taking your time and enjoying and seeing yourself improve. There's a value in that. It also helps neurologically because it allows you to extend and change your neurological pathways. And when you learn and do new things, you connect different neural pathways in your brain, and somehow even just learning something in some aspect can also carry over into other aspects. Cooking has helped me to understand science a whole lot more. Okay, when this reacts with heat, this happens. So a lot of cooking has helped me to understand science and stuff a lot more. I have a passion for geopolitics. It's not a profession, but I find geopolitics really amazing and interesting. Learning about geopolitics has actually helped me to understand people a little bit better, because a lot of geopolitics feels like how people interact with each other, and a lot of it is understanding nuance. So the nuance that has to be explored in why these countries don't agree, it has unlocked a whole lot of understanding when I see two people disagreeing. But I think the important closing thing that I'd love to say is that community is very important. Community is very healing. Even though we still have to work-life balance is always something that we should be striving towards. I would say it is in working with US brands like when I had to do a lot of work with some overseas labels. When Friday 5 o'clock comes around, you don't hear from those people until Monday. Don't matter what you have going on, them disconnect from work. And as somebody who doesn't work a 9 to 5, it was very interesting to kind of experience that, and it really changed how I even approach my own work, because it's like the whole point of not working a 9 to 5 is to have the freedom to design your life how you want to design it. Who is telling you that you have to work through the weekend? Mind you, there's a lot of times where I have had to work through weekends, and that's just where the work is. It really kind of reminded me that I have the free will to set some boundaries over how I approach work, as well as how I approach my life. Because as an adult, especially as a creative, sometimes these things happen very quickly. You get placed into the driver's seat very quickly. Like, it happens sometimes very silently, and you don't remember that it's not your parents must tell you what to do. It's not your employer must tell you what to do. It's not your teacher must tell you what to do. But you are allowed to choose what it is you do. Even if you work a 9 to 5, you choose to work a 9 to 5. And I think sometimes we have become so locked into thinking that life has to go a certain way. We have to reconnect to our freedom and our free will to really understand that, you know what, I am the architect of my life, and I really need to take some time out to really design my life how I want it to be. And part of that may be like, oh, on a standard, I don't work on weekends. Or maybe somebody might be like, I work on weekends, but I don't work on Monday and Tuesday. You know, it might be weird to some other people, but if it works for you, it works for you. What we need to remember as a people that need community and we need others is that community is not designed to be convenient. It's not designed to be convenient. When you have friends and a community or a system or even family, when you land at the airport at 11 o'clock and you need a pickup, it is not necessarily convenient for the person who is picking you up at the airport. When someone is on the highway and their car has broken down and they need a pickup, it is not convenient to go and drive for them. Community is not designed to be convenient because it is a support system. When I come and pick you up at the airport at 11 o'clock, it's not convenient, but it is an opportunity for us to be closer. Like, yo, you remember that time when I picked you up from the airport late and it did empty? Or, yo, you remember that time where you drove on the highway and you helped me start up the car? Man, that was a day. And these things all connect back to us being able to connect with each other, with us being able to ask for help, with us being able to say, hey, I'm feeling lonely. All of these things, all of these afflictions that are affecting us and affecting our mental health, a lot of them are rooted in us losing certain recipes that allow us to connect with ourselves and connect with others outside of the watchful eye of social media and the internet. And I think it is just important for us as a people, especially on the brink of a season that was literally all about hobbies, having fun, and connecting with each other, that we take this summer and we learn how to recapture that joy, even while we still do have to work, but capture that joy and carry it forward so that we have a rounded life. You see me? I hope everything that I said just now made sense. If you vibe with it, do let me know. I would love to hear. I want some hobby suggestions. I would like to know what the listeners of A One Par do as a hobby. And who knows, I might discover something or I might learn about a new hobby that I might take up, or I might learn that you guys have a hobby that we can connect with. So if you're watching this on YouTube, drop your hobby in the comments. If you're not on YouTube, we will make an Instagram post about hobbies, and I want to see you guys in the comments about that hobby. Or you can feel free to DM me or the One Par page and tell us what kind of hobbies you guys are interested into. Because this summer we are gonna be productive, and we're gonna shell, but we also are gonna wholesome vibes. We're gonna do some different things. We're gonna connect with ourselves, we're gonna have a wholesome time, and we're gonna be some rounded people. So I don't know. Stay safe until the next podcast. My birthday is on June 18th. I'll tell you guys more about what the next episode will be on time, but I can't remember now sitting here if the next episode will be before or after my birthday. I think it might be after. So do with that information as you will, and continue to bless up yourself.